Cool. So we're recording. Great. So hello, everyone. First of all, thank you for making it out to our second OpenClass Zoom session. I'm excited to walk through again a brief overview of what OpenClass is, how this works, and then a step-by-step sort of demonstration to help everyone get started, build your first class in OpenClass, and sort of go from there. But before I jump into this, I'd like to introduce Gabe, who's on this call, who basically, as OpenClass is getting out to more and more classes, and I'm trying to like manage my support as best as I can. That's really going to be sort of my full-time job over the next year, is just making sure this pilot goes really well and everyone that decides to use OpenClass can really figure it out. But just in case I'm, too busy or whatever else, just dealing with so many new classes, Gabe is here to help out with support as well. So you're probably going to hear from me most of the time, but you may also hear from Gabe, who knows the OpenClass product front and back really, really well. And so Gabe, I'll give you the floor to introduce yourself, and yeah.
Yep, thanks, Alec. I think you mostly covered it, but I'm just here along the way. Started using OpenClass a little over a month ago and building out a class for a chemistry assignment. And since then, just been kind of in love with the idea, and I think it's had great execution. So yeah, here to help out wherever possible. Something I wish I had when I was in school. I think that, in terms of the student learning opportunities, it's a lot greater than traditional homework assignments. So happy to be along for the ride and willing to help out wherever possible.
Awesome, thanks, Gabe. And yeah, we'll discuss this more at the end of the call, but one of the things I'd really like to get going is just really good support for this. I know that new technologies can be intimidating or overwhelming or things like that. So what I'd ideally like to do is any LIU instructor that's interested in using OpenClass, ideally setting up some sort of like monthly one-on-one or something like that, and sort of, just see how it goes the first like call or two. If you're able to really figure things out and sort of get it going and like don't need my help, that's great. You can, sort of take the training wheels off in a sense and just sort of go at it. Or if you do need more help, that's what me and Gabe are here for, is to really help make sure that you figure this out and for this to be a great tool in your class. But anyways, I'll start with just a brief overview again of what OpenClass is, just as a reminder, or for anyone that wasn't able to make our first call. Basically, OpenClass, in short, is a tool for you to build better assignments for your classes. I understand, I think this is entirely LIU pharmacy on this call. There may be some nursing folks, but basically the idea is you'll teach your classes as you normally do. OpenClass doesn't invade with anything like that. So however you want to teach your classes, whether you have an in-person class, an online class, a hybrid class, whatever it is, you teach your classes as normal, and you'd build out an OpenClass assignment. You could either build these out on a weekly basis. So maybe you have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday lecture, you build out an OpenClass assignment for the next Monday that covers that weekly material, or these can be on a per unit basis, where if you have like 7 major units that you cover in your syllabus, you could potentially have an OpenClass assignment for each of those. And I'm gonna share my screen here. And before I get into the step-by-step sort of walkthrough, I wanna do 2 super quick demos. One is a new feature that I was working on over winter break that I'm really excited about. And it's something that I really think and hope that LIU instructors will really enjoy using this feature. But basically, one of the early ideas with OpenClass was to try to democratize education a little bit and allow educators to sort of crowdsource questions, share their assignments and things like that. So basically over winter break, I was building out features to sort of like enhance this experience. And one of the ideas basically is, as you build out your assignments, you'll basically get a link, something like all of these links in here, where you can share your assignments with other instructors. And you could sort of build up a repository, such as this one for linguistics assignments, where, for example, we have the University of Arizona Linguistics Department using this, the University of Arizona Physics Department using this, where if there's other LIU pharmacy instructors and there's some overlap in your classes potentially, you could share these if you want, totally optional. OpenClass doesn't require this to function or anything. But once you build out these assignments, the point is, if you have like other TAs that may be teaching some version of your classes, or any of your colleagues that you just sort of want to crowdsource and share assignments with. You could build up a repository of all your assignments that look like this. So for example, with this linguistics one, maybe you could go into one of these assignments, click this link, and it'll basically open up a share page, which looks like this. This goes over, this is how OpenClass works. And any of the other educators that have this link would be able to sort of view each of these questions in here, view the instructor solution, and this mastery question. Again, if you didn't see the first session of how OpenClass works, I'm gonna walk through the student demo in a second and that'll be more clear. But basically it should be super easy. The instructor can click this button to take it as a student and demo how that assignment works for students, or click this button to add it to their class. And so you could even use this if you use OpenClass, for example, for multiple quarters or semesters or versions of your class or whatever. You could even just use this for yourself and just continue to clone, reuse your assignments, and you can go into these assignments and say, hey, this is pretty close to what I covered. Maybe I want to add a few questions of my own, move some of these questions, change some of these questions. All of that is allowed through this new share feature. So I'm really excited about this, but this is more of like an end of the semester type thing, or excuse me, end of quarter type thing that I think will be more relevant then. So that's how this works. And really quickly, I'm just going to go over another quick demo of sort of providing context of what you're building out as an instructor, what these assignments look like for students. So basically, students would receive a link. Again, if you're building out weekly assignments, maybe of your Monday, Wednesday, Friday lecture, students would be emailed a link that following Monday for whatever you covered that previous week. So in this example, chemical reactions assignment, the student would be able to see an overview of how these assignments work and click this begin assignment button to take the assignment. And every question follows the same format based on these cognitive neuroscience principles of how people best retain information. So these questions always start with a retrieval question, something like this, given the balanced equation, how many grams of this react with that. Basically just a question where students can't just see the answer on the page, they can't just read the answer, it's not a multiple choice question. They need to interact with this question and attempt to generate an answer. The cognitive neuroscience behind this is just that people retain information better by studying via testing rather than standard studying techniques. So for this type of question, maybe the student does the work on a separate sheet of paper, enters their solution here, whatever they think the answer is, save response and continue. And as soon as they submit their response in there, they're shown a corrective feedback loop, which basically includes the instructor's solution. So the student can compare, okay, here's what I said the answer is, here's what the instructor said the solution is, with here's like the work if in case I didn't understand this, so the student can sort of assess whether they got it right or not. And if they didn't understand this, they can go through this feedback and try to learn this and figure it out. And then the feedback pages include not just the instructor's solution, but specific excerpts of whatever you covered in class. So this could be PowerPoint presentations, it could be pages from a textbook like this, could be maybe 3 minutes if you have your lectures recorded or have YouTube videos or something like that. I'll walk through how to build these things in a second, but retrieval question followed by this feedback, followed by this multiple choice mastery question, which basically serves to make this feedback more interactive and more engaging for students and assess their current understanding of the material. So how many grams of H2O are formed this time if you change the moles around? A student would go through, maybe I think this is the answer. They could see more specific feedback for why this is correct or incorrect. And you'll notice that this mastery progress bar jumped up now to 40%. And these assignments will basically continue to draw questions until the student achieves 100% mastery. And the idea with that is to just make these assignments adaptive. If students don't understand specific concepts that you covered, they'll have more practice to sort of get them up to par with the rest of the class and sort of level the playing field for students of different backgrounds. Since this was just a demo assignment, I only had one question in here, but typically it would continue to draw questions until the student has mastered that content. Cool, so any questions on OpenClass, how this works, the sharing or anything like that? Great, okay, so next I'm gonna send a link into the Zoom. Zoom always confuses me, let's see. Okay, Tina, I got your question about the integration with Blackboard. So basically how this is gonna start, and I'll walk through this in a second, is basically we're starting on a standard environment. I wanted to get the Blackboard integration done before classes start. I believe classes start February 2nd. Is that correct? Like a week from now?
The first.
February 1st. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, the goal is to have this Blackboard integration done. Unfortunately, just due to timing, I wasn't able to be connected with the LIU IT person to enable this integration yet. But the expectation would be that probably not for like these first classes, but by your next class, whether that's like the summer or whenever you're teaching again, that will have the LIU Blackboard integration ready to go, and all of your classes and things like that would automatically be migrated over. But I'll walk through how this starts just through the email environment, and hopefully we can get that Blackboard environment going, you know, relatively soon. But I'm going to send a link into the chat right now, which is the okay, I just sent the create account link in here, and then I'm going to share my screen again. So if everyone clicks this link, basically I'm going to walk through sort of step by step how to build your first class in OpenClass, how to build your first assignment, and sort of, you know, basically hold your hand through this process and just walk through this all. And if there's any questions, we can get to that at the end. But I'm going to go, you know, pretty slowly through this, just helping you set up your account and sort of figuring this out. So if you click that link, you should be seeing a page that looks like this: create an account. This page is for educators at Long Island University to create an OpenClass account. And then this little form here to set up your account. So does everyone see this page? Is everyone with me so far? Great, okay. So basically for academic email, enter whatever your LIU email is. So I'm gonna do just a demo one. But yeah, enter your academic email in here, your first name, your last name, and then a password. And the password has some requirements, just like 8 characters, a capital, just some basic level stuff. But click this, that you agree to the privacy policy and terms of use, and then click the create account button. And within the next 15 or 20 seconds or so, you should receive an email from OpenClass to just verify your email, make sure that you are, you know, using the valid LIU email address, and click that link. And when you click that link, you should then be taken to a page that looks like this. And once you're on this page, just log in with whatever credentials you created. Cool. And then you should be taken to basically a page to set up your first class. Hang on, I think I used the wrong account here. Cool. And so when you log in, you should see a page that looks like this. Let me know if anyone's not where I'm at right now. You should see a screen that looks like this with the option to build your first class in sort of this modal that popped up. So if anyone needs more time, let me know. Otherwise, I'll walk through this process of setting up your first class. Great, so it should be pretty straightforward. Just enter whatever your class name is in here. So for example, intro to linguistics, intro to pharmacy, whatever class you teach, enter that in this class name and then press this go button. And you'll be taken basically to your class page, which looks like this. You should be able to see the LIU logo up here, just showing this is the LIU OpenClass environment. You should also see this link, invite your students to join your class by sending them this link. So basically, however you have your class set up, if your class is in Blackboard, or if you use something like Piazza, or if you just communicate with your students via email, however you communicate with your students, you should basically click this link to be able to copy it, and then you'll be able to send it to your students and post that in your class page, and your students will be able to click the link and then join your class automatically. You'll be able to see who has joined your class. If you click this, if you hover over your class and click this edit current class button, you'll be able to see your class list. So you can track your students that have joined as they joined. Yeah, Tina, is that a question? I've never seen this feature in Zoom, but go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
So as I mentioned, we have a lot of team talk courses where there are about 3 or 4, sometimes more individuals in the course. I just created an account and I called it the course I teach in. However, my colleague, Rebecca, who's on this call, might also want to use the feature and build assignments. Do we each build a separate course, or do we both work within the same course?
So the question is correct if you have multiple instructors that teach the same course?
We actually we team teach. So I teach 4 classes, Rebecca might teach 10, Joe might teach another 8 or whatever it is.
Yeah, so that's actually great because that crowdsourcing feature that I initially mentioned, I think is even more relevant for these team teaching things, where basically you'll be able to, so to answer your question in short, yes, you should both have separate classes on OpenClass.
Okay.
I would recommend having a different class for like each section. For example, if you teach 3 different sections of the same class, but each of them are on like a different pace or cover slightly different material or something like that, I would recommend having a different class on OpenClass for that. So yeah, you and Rebecca would both have separate classes on OpenClass, and then I'll point out as I walk through building an assignment, if you want to share assignments with each other, that's something that OpenClass allows pretty easily, and I'll walk through how that works. But I think this crowdsourcing feature that I initially mentioned will be really relevant if you have a few instructors that sort of rotate classes and things like that, that you could build up sort of this repository and say, hey, I'm covering this pharmacy concept, like, oh, we already have an assignment on that, boom, I'll click it, and then you can just publish and go, and it's really easy.
Well, actually, we wouldn't be teaching the same things. We teach different topics and would have different assignments. It'd just be one Blackboard shell for that course. So right now, that's why the Blackboard integration would have been ideal, because everything is housed in Blackboard. But my understanding now, and I might be wrong here, is I just created this course, PHM 325 Intro to Pharmacy Practice, under my account. Presumably, Rebecca and Joe, and others who teach in the course, will do the same. So now students may have several links to access different assignments, all within the same course.
Okay, so I understand. So you have multiple instructors teaching the same section of the same course, but
Correct.
sort of like different units. Yeah, so
Yes.
what I'll do with that is, for now, for this demo, just each of you have your same course. And then after this call, I'll set you all as co-instructors of the same course. So then you could build assignments together, and sort of maybe Rebecca builds assignment 1, you build assignment 2, and so on. But yeah, so now I understand. So yeah, basically that's possible in the OpenClass backend to set multiple instructors for the same course, so that students only have the one class on OpenClass and don't need to join like 5 different classes on here.
Got it. That's exactly what I was questioning. So we would have to go through you so you can set it up in the back end.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And yeah, that's on my product backlog, is to make it easier for instructors to do that automatically and just sort of invite like a co-instructor to their course. But just for now, I'll do it. It'll take me 2 minutes after this call to set you all as co-instructors for the same course. But
Okay.
yeah, so you'll have just the one course, and OpenClass works really well as a collaboration tool, where you can have multiple instructors sort of editing the same assignment, and maybe you build out 3 questions, Rebecca builds out 3 questions, and so on. Or you could sort of do like a 1-by-1 approach where you build out assignment 1, she builds out assignment 2, and so on. But yes, cool. And so now you should be on a class page that looks like this, and you'll see this build an assignment button with the little description of how these assignments work. Again, my job with OpenClass is to provide the tools for you to build really great assignments. It's up to you all as the educators for how you want to use these. I have my suggestions of like best practices, and what I think works best is either using OpenClass assignments on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis. So like 1 every week, 1 every 2 weeks, or per unit. So like if you have 7 units in your syllabus, building out 1 assignment per unit, but totally up to you as the educator to decide how you want to use this. But basically, to build an assignment, you'll click this build an assignment button. And just for the sake of the demo, I wish that I was more of an expert in pharmacy, to be honest, so I could walk through a more relevant example. But I'm just going to walk through a basic example of like a parts of speech assignment. So in this top left area, you can enter a title for your assignment. So let's just call this part of speech review assignment. So that's sort of step one, is give your assignment a title. And then each question, you'll be able to see a list of your questions here. And you can work on these in parts. So for example, if you start a question, you can leave the assignment and come back and finish the question later. It'll be saved as a draft and so on. But basically, again, these questions follow that format based on how students best retain information, which starts with that retrieval question. So something like, what an adjective. After students submit their response to that, they'll see a solution, which could be modified as a noun. And after they go through and review your feedback, they're going to be asked that multiple choice mastery question, which follows up on this initial retrieval question. So like, give an example of an adjective. The house, you could enter between 2 to 5 options here, is blue, something like that. To select whichever answer is the correct one, just click this little check mark icon here. For any of the options, you can enter a reason for why it's correct or why it's incorrect. So for house, you can click this add explanation button and say this is a noun. By default, the multiple choice options will be shuffled. If you don't want to shuffle them, you can uncheck this. And once you uncheck from your question, the question should turn pink, just indicating that, hey, you have everything that's needed. This is a published question. Does anyone have any questions so far? Great.
I have a quick question. So
Yeah.
what would happen if, say, a student was doing this and they said an adjective is an action word? So like you said, if they get it wrong, it goes back to a new practice or something. Do you have to enter 5 different versions of this question, or how do you set that up?
No, as the instructor, you would just enter your one solution here. Basically, the idea is that this is a study tool for students. So like actually from like a computational perspective, nothing's being done with the student's answer. So whether they get this retrieval question correct or incorrect, it's on the student to make that determination based on the instructor's solution. So if I entered an adjective as an action, then I'll be able to see the instructor's solution modifies a noun. And then I could say, okay, it looks like I didn't completely understand adjectives, and sort of self-assess that way. From the computational sort of assessment of, does a student understand this concept or not? That's completely based on the multiple choice mastery question. And so that's sort of how that works. And like, hopefully that should make your job easier as an educator. All of these assignments are auto-graded and based on mastery. And I'll go through the metrics page in a minute, but basically the idea is you'll be able to see sort of like the big picture overview of what your students understand or don't understand, and don't really need to go through individual student responses unless something specific comes up. Like if you want to view one particular student's answers and just making sure they're taking it seriously or whatever else like that, you can also do that through the metrics page. But does that answer your question?
Yes, that really helps a lot. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Thank you. And so, yeah, that's basically one question. And now, like I said, a big part of like these review assignments are reviewing like whatever was learned in class. So for example, as I mentioned, like if you have like a PowerPoint that you cover in your class, or if you have like pages in your textbook or YouTube videos that you want your students to review, or if you have your lectures recorded, if this is an online class or anything like that, you can attach specific excerpts of whatever resources you covered in your class to each of these questions. So I'm going to walk through how that works right now with a YouTube video. And since I know that most of you probably don't have a YouTube video pulled up, I'm going to send this in the chat as well. Sorry, I always struggle with Zoom figuring this out. Cool, so I'm just gonna send a YouTube video in here. So basically just copy this link just so you can sort of walk through this with me of adding a video as a resource in here. So click this add resource button after you click this resources tab, and you'll be able to add a resource. You could either select, it's pretty flexible to work with hopefully any of the content types that you could cover in your class, whether you have like a PDF, if you have like a PNG image, if you have an MP4 video file, if you have YouTube videos, if you have like a web page that you want to include as feedback. It's pretty flexible to work with a lot of these types. For this example, click this YouTube video option, and where it says link, paste that link that I just sent. And for the title, let's just call this part of speech clip, but you'll be able to enter whatever title you want. And hopefully it's similarly self-explanatory for if you add like a PDF, you're gonna select the file from your computer or whatever other type. But just for this example, I'm gonna show adding a YouTube video in here. So you should be able to click add. It may take a second to upload to our server and come back, but then you should see this parts of speech clip as a resource in here. And then what you'll be able to do as you add these resources is basically tag them to any of your questions. So now if we come back to this what's an adjective question, we can see this section at the bottom, what resources should be shown as feedback. And so you can select, okay, this video is relevant. And it's also important, in my opinion, to select like a specific resource. It's a little bit overwhelming from the perspective of a student if you upload like an hour-long video with a specific question and say, here's the feedback, when really you may have only talked about adjectives or whatever the concept is for a few minutes span. So after you select the video, you'll be able to select a specific time excerpt. So maybe you want to say this is from 4 minutes in to 8:35, something like that, just so students can say, okay, you know what, I didn't understand adjectives, or I didn't understand this pharmacy concept or whatever, and they'll be able to go straight to that section in the video, watch it, and then answer the question that's associated with it. So that's adding resources with your questions. With PDF files, you'll be able to select, let's say you have a 30-page presentation, you'll be able to select individual presentation slides that you want to be shown as feedback, and that's how that works. And last thing I'll just point out about these questions is on this left-hand side here, you'll be able to see all these buttons, which basically these questions show by default only the minimum required information is that retrieval question, the solution, and then the multiple choice follow-up question. But if your question needs more information, for example, if you have like a chart or a graph or something like that and want to add an image, you can click this add an image to your question button. You can add an image to your solution, add an image to this multiple choice question. If you want your students to like draw a graph instead of entering in a text response, you could allow image upload, so your student could do the answer on a separate sheet of paper, take a picture and upload it with this question. If you want to add a hint, you could add a hint. Here is a hint. If you want to add details, here are details. So you could add more information with these questions. But this is just sort of the minimum amount: retrieval question, solution, multiple choice mastery question. And that's one question. Each of these sections includes like a little, maybe 3-sentence overview of like what this section is. And so if you forget anything that I said, hopefully this is helpful. You'll be able to take this sample assignment as well to sort of walk through an example of like what exactly you're building here, which basically shows that same intro demo that I started with. I've been recommending between 7 to 10 questions per assignment. I know these questions are pretty thorough, but I think you'll find a lot of use in them and have them be really powerful. And the other thing, as I demonstrated earlier, hopefully this is just a one-time time cost in terms of building out these assignments. I really think these are assignments that will really help students retain information that I hope you'll be able to keep with you for the rest of your teaching careers. Even easier, because in the future you'll be able to just clone these assignments. Say, you know, the year's 2023 and you're teaching the same class again for the 4th time, you'll be able to start with all of your previously built open class assignments. If you want to add some questions, modify some questions, things like that, you'll always be able to do that. And that's a question in here, so you can click this add question button and continue to add questions just like this one. Again, 7 to 10 questions is my recommendation. You could collaborate with other instructors building these assignments. I didn't pull up an example for that, just I wasn't really expecting that, but it still works if you have like 3 different instructors working on one of the same assignments. We've had a number of instructors do that already and it works pretty well. And a couple other things I'm going to show here. First is this preview assignment button, this little eyeball in the top right. So let's click that button and you'll be able to see the assignment preview, which again, you have the question page, the retrieval question. Students submit their response in here. Here's what how the hint works is the student can click that. As soon as they save their response and continue, they'll be shown this feedback page. So you can review this and say, you know what, I didn't really want this, you know, this is the wrong excerpt of this, or I don't like how my solution is here, or whatever else. If you don't like how your question looks, you can go back and sort of modify it before you publish. But so that's the preview. Next, let's check out these additional settings. So there's a few things in here that I'll point out. One is you can set a due date for each of your assignments. So basically, let's say you want this due next Monday. You could set that in there at whatever time you want. By default for the LIU environment, the time zone should be America and New York, which should be right. But if you want to change the time zone, you can do that. And basically what this due date will do is after the due date, students will still be able to access your assignment and complete the assignment. But in terms of like grades and like default grades, hang on, I'm gonna check the chat really quick. Yeah, so Anna, what I'm planning to do, I'll discuss this after the call, but basically what I'm gonna do after this call is create like an LIU frequently asked questions Google document, and sort of any question that's presented to me, I'm gonna put it all in this document. Hopefully it's like a helpful sort of like hub that you could go back to at any time. Like if you know, if you're working on these assignments at like 8 p.m. or 6 a.m. or whatever time, and maybe I'm not available for whatever reason, and you just want to like have a quick look at something, I'm planning to create like a collaborated Google document with all of your questions in there. But with that said, I'm also, you know, available to do like one-on-one Zoom calls, and if I'm not available, Gabe will be available for that. So yes, I'll email all the instructions and everything else after this call. And Tina, I believe I answered this question going through this, but yeah, students will be integrated into your class through that invite link. And hopefully it should be pretty easy to embed like presentations and things like that just through the method that I just showed. But anyways, going back to the due date, basically for the purpose for this, students will still be able to access your assignment after the due date. The only thing that the due date really affects is students' default grades, which I'll show what that looks like in the metrics. You'll be able to download grades and see these students all completed the assignment on time, these students didn't attempt the assignment, these students completed it late, and so on. You'll be able to download all that information as a CSV and then add that to your Blackboard page. Again, hopefully soon this will be able to be integrated with Blackboard and we'll be able to get that going from there. And by default, every assignment is all encompassing, which you could see the information of what this means basically, but you can turn this off if you want. Basically, the idea of having these assignments be all encompassing is, let's say this is like week 8 of your class. That assignment is going to cover mostly week 8 content, but it's going to sprinkle in review questions from your previous assignments, prioritizing questions that students struggled with earlier on to give them continuous practice throughout the duration of the semester. The idea, again, everything with this project is research-based. How do people best retain information? And the idea is something called spaced repetition, where people retain information basically by studying, let me start over, by reviewing previously learned content at spaced intervals dramatically improves learning. So that's something that OpenClass sort of automatically bakes in with this option. And lastly, let's publish this assignment. I know this assignment sucks and isn't relevant to pharmacy or anything like that, but we'll discard it after we publish it just so I could walk through all that. You could either schedule your assignment to publish in the future, which, you know, if you're building these ahead of time, maybe you want your assignments to publish every Monday, you can set that date in here, or you can just publish them as you build them. So for this example, let's just publish this right away. Click this publish button. As soon as you publish your assignment, your students will be immediately emailed a link to the assignment. I'll show you in a second. You'll also get an assignment link, which again, I feel bad that the Blackboard integration isn't done yet. It was just sort of, to be honest, I haven't been able to get in contact with the LIU IT person to help enable that, but hopefully that'll be done soon. But this should still work really well without it. But as soon as you publish your assignment, you'll be taken to the metrics page. Your students will receive an email link, and you'll also receive a link that you could just sort of manually post to Blackboard or wherever your class is. As soon as you publish your assignment, you'll be presented with this option of, do you want to share your assignment with other educators? As I mentioned at the start, one of my big goals with OpenClass is to really democratize education. I feel like it's really important for a few reasons, but OpenClass is just focused on improving the way people learn. And we're working with different schools now actually from around the world and different students from around the world. And I just think it's such a powerful idea that, you know, pharmacy instructors from Europe or California or Wyoming or wherever would be able to get access to LIU pharmacy materials. And then there's sort of, in turn, the benefit would fall upon their students being able to receive all these different perspectives and the best learning resources from around the world. So that's something I'm really trying to promote with this. There's a little explanation of how that works as well. Basically, if you open your assignments, they'll be accessible for other educators to access your questions and assignments from the assignment builder. There's a little crowdsourcing tab in the assignment builder. I didn't really go through it just because we don't have really any pharmacy instructors yet. LIU is going to be the first group of pharmacy instructors using OpenClass, so it's not super relevant right now, but I just think it'd be really cool in the future. Let's say there's a few dozen pharmacy instructors using OpenClass to all sort of share assignments and questions. But so that's sort of like what I'm focused on. This is completely optional. I don't want to pressure anyone into contributing their questions or anything like that. I know some instructors have had legal concerns of like, do I own my content or does LIU own my content, or just whatever concern you have. I don't want to pressure anyone into doing this, so you can always keep your assignment private, but if you do want to contribute your assignments, you can click this yes, open this assignment, and that's what that'll do. Whether you have it open or private, you'll receive a link also to share it with other instructors. So even if you have your assignment private, you can still share that assignment with other educators in LIU pharmacy. So like if you're rotating classes or something like that, they'll have this link. You could say, this is like an intro pharmacy assignment, and then other instructors would be able to click this link and quickly add your assignment to their class, modify it, publish, and so on. That's how the crowdsourcing works. And then you'll be basically taken to this metrics page where you'll be able to track as your students complete your assignment. By default, all of your questions will be sorted by lowest accuracy based on this multiple choice question. And a big goal with these metrics is to help facilitate data-driven learning. So instructors could say, hey, students in my class aren't really understanding adjectives or whatever concept it is. And then the idea is that as the instructor, you could sort of make the determination, why are students not understanding this? Is the feedback unclear? Is the question ambiguous? Or is it just a difficult concept that I should spend more time discussing in my next class? And hopefully this is something that will be able to provide you real sort of feedback on how students are responding to your learning resources and adapt and improve your classes accordingly. In this top section, you'll see this assignment link button, so you can click that. And as I said, the assignment link will be emailed to all your students automatically. But if you also want to post the assignment link in Blackboard or something like that, you'll be able to copy these links. There's two of them here. One of them, basically this first link is, if you have any students that maybe not be enrolled in your class, you could send this link and they'll automatically be enrolled when they click this link and able to take your first assignment. Or if you send that original link that I showed, that invite link, that's not even necessary. You can just send them the default link and they'll be able to complete the assignment. And lastly, there's this download grades button here where you can download all of your students' grades as a CSV. This works, I know this works as an upload to Sakai and to D2L to automatically import, export grades. I haven't confirmed on Blackboard yet, but if this format isn't working, I could look into that and potentially change the format a little bit to make it easier for you to automatically import these grades into Blackboard. But basically, grading works based on completion. The assignment will continue to generate questions until the student has achieved mastery. Once that student has achieved mastery, they'll receive full points on your assignment. If they don't achieve mastery or don't do your assignment, they'll get a 0 by default when you download these grades. And that's pretty much OpenClass. The last thing I'm going to show really quick, which shouldn't be super relevant during the class, but now that we have our assignment that's not too relevant, you can click this edit button, and I'm just going to show you deleting an assignment, how that works, is you could either unpublish your assignment. Let's say if you accidentally published your assignment and didn't mean to do that or whatever, you can unpublish it so students wouldn't be able to see it, or you could just delete it entirely, which I'm going to do. And now you should be back to your class with no assignments and hopefully able to build out your first assignment here. So I know that was a lot of information right now, and I want to give you all the floor if you have any questions or things like that. But actually, really quick before I wanted to do that, I'm just going to say, so yeah, in response to Anna's question, that was something that I was actually going to hit on, was making this sort of frequently asked question page there. I'll include sort of like an overview of these steps of like how to build out open class assignments, recommended usage of these open class assignments, things like that. But also one other thing that I wanted to mention, which somebody brought up during our last session, was the ability for OpenClass to sort of import your questions. For example, I understand a lot of you have probably been teaching for many years now. If you have sort of like a CSV, for example, of I've got all these test questions or assignment questions, or the platform that was brought to my attention during our last call is Examity. If you have questions on Examity that you can export, again, my 100% main objective for really all of 2021 while we're doing this pilot is just making sure everything goes well. So feel free to email me any of your questions that you have in terms of like assignment questions and things like that. And yeah, ExamSoft. So whatever you have as your questions, email them to me and I could help automate, import them. And what that could look like, basically, again, OpenClass has this very specific format of you've got the retrieval question, then the solution, then the multiple choice question. And so if you have a list of multiple choice questions, I could import a bunch of question drafts with just the multiple choice question. Or if you have a bunch of retrieval questions, I can import them like that. But yeah, the point is, I really want to help in any way I can to sort of like automate a bunch of this and just make this all as easy as possible. And I've been talking for a while, so I want to give you all the floor for any questions or concerns or anything like that. I'm here to help in any way I can. So please let me know if you have any questions. Anyone?
Alec, it's Tina. So I'll be honest with you. I don't see how, I can only speak for myself, but how I would be using this platform for summative assessments, as opposed to maybe just weekly review material for students, or review assignments that they have to complete before they come in, let's say to lab, or we have large lecture-based courses, and then within them, some of them have weekly or bi-weekly recitation courses where they complete active learning assignments in small groups. So how are others using this for their courses? Are they doing it more for, weekly review, or are they using the results of these assessments to assign grades? Because again, it's a mastery type of thing. It's not like you're generating a grade out of this, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So basically how pretty much every instructor and sort of the intended usage of OpenClass is sort of as the review assignment, and not really, this isn't something that's going to replace testing or anything like that. This is something that's really going to help your students retain whatever you're teaching, and specifically retain all of that knowledge long-term. So like several years after they've taken your class, help them retain that information much longer. So these would be like a weekly review assignment, or a bi-weekly or per unit review assignment, and not replacing tests. And in terms of grading, you're right, this is graded based on mastery and completion. A big goal of OpenClass is this idea that mastery is more important than marks, and just making sure students understand this, having this at their, like the adaptive, like at your own pace component. But basically a lot of instructors have sort of used OpenClass in their grade book, maybe as like 10% of their grade, almost like replacing like an attendance grade or something like that. Just do these OpenClass assignments. As long as you do them, you'll get full credit, and not really having these like in place of tests.
I see. Do you have any outcomes data from other instructors that have used it and have compared results of their students in semesters where they used OpenClass versus in prior semesters where they did not?
So that's actually data that I'm really hoping to get. I do have some research studies from other things that basically leverage the same principles that OpenClass is leveraging. Things such as like space repetition has led to a 20% increase in knowledge retention in an undergraduate meteorology class and things like that. So a lot of these principles, I have a research page that I'll enter in here.
But nothing specific to this tool yet that you know of.
1 second, I'm just entering this link. So here's like the research page in case anyone's curious. There's so much research supporting a lot of these things that are implemented, but in terms of like OpenClass specifically, just sort of like a little timeline of this project. We were actually in just one single class 1 year ago. We did our first pilot through the U of A linguistics department, and it's been growing pretty quick since then. But in terms of like, this isn't something that's been around for like 6 or 7 years to be able to collect like a lot of data points of, you know, this intro to linguistics class used OpenClass and this one didn't. Here's how students like performed, and like, especially since this is about long-term knowledge retention, seeing how much better they retain that knowledge over like a 2 or 3 year span. So this is something I've been talking with a lot of like the psychology instructors at the University of Arizona, trying to conduct some research studies specifically on OpenClass. But as of today, that specific OpenClass related research doesn't exist. Hopefully it will soon. But again, this is still kind of like the relatively early stages of this and like getting this out there and like collecting those data points.
Okay. And then the other question I had is, you did show us how to embed PowerPoints and videos, but we have 2-hour-long lectures. My question is, if I want to just show a snippet of a video that pertains to that question, do I have to edit that video before uploading it to OpenClass? How do I do that? Because that would be ridiculously difficult to do, and I don't know that it's worth it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So basically the idea is that you would be able to do that. You'd click this. Oh, whoops, I'm not sharing my screen here. So I'm just going to share my screen again. I don't think I have an MP4 or anything on my laptop, but if you have like your videos on YouTube, or if you have an MP4 file, you can click this native video section and add the video. So I'm just going to, since I do have this YouTube clip here, I'm just going to show what this looks like again with the YouTube video. So basically you would upload your video. Again, OpenClass accepts MP4 files or YouTube files for videos, or pretty much any video file, I think .mov files, things like that. So you can upload a 2-hour-long video. And then for these questions, you can say, what's an adjective? And let's say your video is 2 hours. When you select your video, you can select an excerpt with it too. So you can say, okay, I only talked about adjectives from 20 minutes in to 23 minutes,
Okay.
minutes in, to select that specific excerpt. Because yeah, I'm right there with you that it really doesn't make sense to include like a 2-hour video as feedback for a question.
So when you put that excerpt, that time, it will only link those 3 minutes to that particular question?
Yeah, I'll show you what this does actually. So this video has the excerpt. I don't think this video is 20 minutes long even, so I'm gonna enter a. So I entered a short little excerpt in here, and I'm gonna preview the assignment just to show you what this looks like for students. Is they'll be able to see, okay, this parts of speech clip, watch from 3:04 to 5:55. And when they start this video, it's going to start
at the beginning.
Automatically at 3:04.
He went to the store.
So it's going to start at that start time. So it should be really easy for students to be able to see, okay, this concept is covered from this specific excerpt. And that's like the idea of this project, is it's so valuable as students to be able to have that like specific information of, okay, these 2 slides are relevant to adjectives. This 3-minute clip of like a 2-hour-long video is directly pertaining to this concept that I don't completely understand. It'll really help students retain that information significantly better.
And does it do that with PowerPoint too, where let's say you have a 40 slide, you don't have to show me, but like a 40 slides, but the question only pertains to slides 3 through 6. Does it allow you to indicate slides 3 through 6?
Yeah, I know you said not to show you, but I'm just going to do a super quick preview of this because I do have a PDF on my laptop. So basically, you'd be able to upload a file. So I've got a naive Bayes presentation. And then it's the same exact thing where you're selecting specific excerpts of this, where like every single page of that PDF will show here, and you can say, okay, this slide is relevant, this slide is relevant, and this slide is relevant. Again, with the same exact concept that you want to make the feedback as specific as possible for these students to really learn this concept.
Okay.
Cool. Any other questions?
How long is this pilot program with LIU?
So the pilot program is through the end of December, through the end of the year, through December 31st. But just to sort of like ease any like concerns or anything like that, you know, if it's like a year from now and we're not able to like renew the pilot and like do some sort of like extended contract beyond that, the business model for OpenClass is free forever for individual educators and then charging for institutional licenses. So there is a plan that if LIU for whatever reason doesn't want to continue with OpenClass, that it's not like all of your questions and like I'm not going to kick you off the server or anything like that. Basically what would happen is we just migrate you to our free environment, which still has all of the same features, just wouldn't have like the LIU branding. If we get this Blackboard integration done, would go back to like the email environment and things like that. But you wouldn't lose all of your questions. And actually, I'm going to share my screen one more time here because you'll also be able to, I don't want anyone to ever feel trapped into OpenClass. I think it's a great platform, but I don't want you to feel like, oh, now I'm using OpenClass, I can't use anything else ever again. There's this button to download your questions. So like if for whatever reason, like the end of the pilot comes and you're like, you know what, I don't really like OpenClass, you can download your questions and it's not like you lost anything from that. But with that said, I hope that this is something that you will be able to use for the rest of your teaching careers, honestly.
Is any other unit in LIU using it or experimenting with it this semester?
Yeah, so we're, based on my conversation with Dr. Bird, the plan is for LIU Pharmacy and LIU Nursing to be using this tool. Does that answer your question?
It does. I'm just concerned because our courses, it's a lockstep program. So I teach a course that's only offered every spring semester. So again, that's, I'm happy to hear that you have that free account version, but you know, if LIU doesn't continue with this next year, let's say, there's still an option if I wanted to continue using it myself, you're saying?
Yes, 100%. Like I want OpenClass to be a really great tool, and accessibility is so core to everything I'm trying to do with this. Like, as I mentioned, like democratizing education and things like that, that's why I chose this business model. Was I don't want to limit like, okay, these instructors can't use OpenClass because, you know, their program doesn't have the budget for it or something like that. So you'll always be able to use OpenClass through your teaching career, no strings attached, nothing like that. With that said, I hope the pilot goes really well and that we're able to get a contract and like, you know, continue this like longer term through the LIU environment. But yeah, there should be no feelings of like you're trapped or anything like that. There's a plan in place that you'll be able to use this regardless of what happens beyond the pilot.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Any other questions from anyone? Great. So the last thing, as I mentioned, one of the things I'd really like to do is for any of the instructors that end up using OpenClass, you know, I'm very passionate about this project, as hopefully it's clear, but I really do want to make sure this goes well and just provide, you know, great support to help you and like hold your hand every step of the way if you need it, building out these assignments and ensuring like everything's working as expected and like your students are responding well to it and so on. That I'd really like to do like individual, like one-on-one, I guess like meetings or workshops or however you want to think of them, just to do continuous check-ins with instructors that continue to use this. So I think I have all of your emails through the through the calendar invitation. But if you didn't RSVP to the LIU workshop invitation, the calendar invite, if you wouldn't mind just like chatting your email address in here, and I'll reach out to everyone sort of one by one, and we can sort of see like, you know, if you're interested in using this. I'm going to get the Google Doc going and hopefully answer all your questions through that, and hopefully set up some sort of like one-on-one Zoom calls to just make sure things are going well. Again, I realize like everyone has like busy schedules and things like that. So if it ends up being like too much and it's like we're doing these one-on-one calls and you just like really have it figured out, I don't want to waste any of your time. So it's only going to be sort of like, if you need help, I'm happy to be there with you and like provide it for you. If you understand OpenClass really well and like you've got a million other things going on, we could sort of like play that by ear a little bit and see, you know what, I think like I'm understanding this well, I'm able to figure it out and just go. And so, you know, we could start with like a monthly one-on-one and sort of update it from there. But yeah, if you don't mind chatting the email address, and then Tina, can you also send me whoever else is teaching your course with you, and I can make sure to get you all set up as co-instructors for the same course?
Yeah, I'll follow up with an email.
Okay, great. Cool. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for attending the second session. I'm really excited to be working, hopefully, with most of you and helping you really build out great classes with this. I'm going to stop recording here, and I'll send this, I'll